Asti, there is. Pratyabhaya, diminution. Na, never. Vijyate, there is. Svapam, little. Api, although. Asya, of this. Dharmasya, of this occupation. Trayate, releases. Mahata, of very great. Bhayat, from danger. Translation. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Activity in Krishna consciousness, or acting for the benefit of Krishna without expectation of sense gratification, is the highest transcendental quality of work. Even a small beginning of such activity finds no impediment, nor can that small beginning be lost at any stage. Any work begun on the material plane has to be completed, otherwise the whole attempt becomes a failure. But any work begun in Krishna consciousness has a permanent effect, even though not finished. The performer of such work is therefore not at a loss, even if his work in Krishna consciousness is incomplete. 1% done in Krishna consciousness bears permanent results, so that the next beginning is from the point of 2%. Whereas in material activity, without 100% success, there is no profit. Ajamil performed his duty in some percentage of Krishna consciousness, but the result he enjoyed at the end was 100% by the grace of the Lord. There is a nice verse in this connection in Srimad Bhagavatam. This verse is spoken by Sri Narada Muni to the compiler of the Vedas named Srila Vyasadeva. Jaktvas Fadharman Charanam Bhujam Harer Bhajan Pakota Tatet Pato Yadi Yatrakvava Bhajramabud Amwishyakim Kavarta Apto Bhajatam Svadharmata. That's from the Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Text 17. Quote, if someone gives up self-gratificatory pursuits and works in Krishna consciousness and then falls down on account of not completing his work, what loss is there on his part, and what can one gain if one performs his material activities perfectly? Or, as the Christians say, what profiteth a man if he gain the whole world, yet suffers the loss of his eternal soul? Material activities and their results end with the body. But work in Krishna consciousness carries the person again to Krishna consciousness even after the loss of the body. At least one is sure to have a chance in the next life of being born again as a human being, either in the family of a great cultured Brahmin or in a rich aristocratic family that will give one a further chance of elevation. That is the unique quality of work done in Krishna consciousness. Okay. So, before we continue to discuss the philosophy, I'm going to recite a few further mantras to continue to invoke auspiciousness in our gathering. Om Angyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurvanmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamupakadamayam Delati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapat Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Samitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Stra Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namosmute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Krishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Kriye Vanchakalpatayubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prestaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine, Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 2, Text 40. Ne hapi kramanashosti prachavayuna vidyate swapamapyasya dharmasya trayate mato bayat. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Okay, so this is Sri Krishna speaking to Sri Arjuna, and this is a pivotal verse in Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita has 700 verses, and this is the first verse. This is the first verse that talks about bhakti. When Krishna is talking about in this endeavor, so we're talking about bhakti. So the previous verse is also a pivotal verse, and Krishna says, "Till now, I've talked about Sankhya, about the analytical study of the distinction between spirit and matter." And so there's like a series of 20 verses, chapter 2, text 11 to 30, where Krishna, he goes into it about the distinction between soul and body and spirit and matter. Okay. All right. So he goes, okay, now in the previous verse, he goes, now I'm going to switch gears in a natural transition. Now, okay, so we're not the body, we're spirit, soul. Well, what does the soul do in enlightenment and self-realization? And that's called bhakti. And in one sense, the entire remainder of the Bhagavad Gita is about that. So this is the first verse where Krishna is really talking about bhakti. Everything else is a preliminary. That so before this, yes, Krishna describes Jayate Miyate Bakarachin Nayam Bhupa Bhavita Banabuya Ajonicham Shashvato Yam Purano Nahanyate Hanumane Sharire. Krishna says, for the soul, there's neither birth nor death, nor having once been does the soul ever cease to be. The soul is undying, and the soul is eternal, everlasting, primeval, unborn. The soul is not slain when the body is slain. Krishna gives several analogies there to help us understand. One analogy is about clothes. He talks about clothes. Samsi Junani Tabihaya, Navani Guinati, Naro Parani, Atashirirani Vihaya Junani, Anyani Samyati, Navani Dehi. So Krishna says, just as one, when changes clothes, similarly, when one body becomes useless, then we change bodies and we get another body. Okay, we get another body. So this is Sankhya. This is logic, right? Many of you know that I like to do this quick thought exercise. A quick thought exercise. I ask that we imagine that we're looking at a photograph of ourselves from when we were 5 years old. We can do that. We can imagine. We're looking at a photo from when we were 5. So when we do that, then do we say, who is this? Who is this stranger in this photograph? No. I say, that's David when I was 5. Say, oh, that's Valerie when I was 5. That's Enon. That's Jenica. That was fun. So where are we going with this? So that we're going. This is just. It's an experiential exercise to confirm what Bhagavad Gita is given. From basic chemistry, basic science, we know there's not one molecule, not one atom that's in the body now that was there at 5 years old. We can say the body grew. It didn't. It's not true. No, I appreciate it. It's like we're like a team. It's nice. It's nice. We got a thing though. So, but the body didn't grow. The body didn't grow. It's not like no. The molecules got bigger and bigger. No, every part is completely changed, and it's like an illusion. Kind of like that the body grew. Kind of like if we look at a movie, just like, oh, now the person's running like that, but actually it's just separate slides. It's just separate slides, right? Right. So, but there's some constant identity that I call David. Right? Some constant identity you call Devin. Even though the physical's completely changed. This is Prabhupada often called, this is the ABCs of spiritual life. Right? What's that constant identity? It's nothing physical. It's nothing physical. The physical's always changed, but there's some constant identity. Okay. Then, all right. So we can say when the body dies, even that's, well, we can deconstruct that. Actually, the body is already dead. It's a nice Saturday morning. I don't mean to be morbid and depressing.
What are you talking about?
Just like another analogy. Yeah. Just like, okay, if we're the body's like a car. The body's like a car. And so the if we're driving a car, say from an alien from the galaxy Andromeda were to visit Earth, the alien might think, oh, there's all these living entities called Toyota and Honda and Chevrolet and Volkswagen. Because there's these entities, but we know, actually, no. The car, it's made of dead stuff. This is the car. It's made of metal, rubber, plastic. This is made of dead stuff. But the car appears alive because when the driver gets in, the car appears alive. So similarly, the body appears alive because we're inside. And the body's always changing. And there's a change of body that we commonly call death. It's described a little later in Bhagavad Gita. Yam yam bapi sman bhavan chajajante kalegram tam tam evete konteya sadatai bhava bhavita. So that the consciousness we develop in this lifetime, the consciousness we develop, that will determine where the soul goes, the sort of body the soul goes to at the death of this body. So it's all about cultivation of consciousness. And that's what Krishna is stressing here. So that what we cultivate in our consciousness, that's lasting, that's enduring, that's lasting, that's enduring. Anything, right, anything we create just related to the body, it's like, let's use that imagery, like castles in the sand, the tide of time. Kalosmi loka prabhida kshaya krit. Krishna, yes. Krishna says, time I am, destroyer of worlds. Actually, was it 1945, the first atomic explosion on this planet in recent times. We can go into ancient times, it's another discussion. But the first atomic explosion when they tested the atomic bomb in New Mexico or something. So, one of the main scientists who developed that is Robert Oppenheimer. So he was a scholar of Bhagavad Gita. He learned Sanskrit. He was very inspired by the Gita. So when he saw the first atomic explosion, he quoted Krishna, Kalosmi, Pravita Lokakshaya, time I am, destroyer. So whatever we create in the material realm, it's going to be annihilated by time. We can try to avoid that reality. And then that's empty. It's empty. Whatever. We create a bank account. We create a house. It's going to be destroyed by time. We create respect in a particular group. It's going to be destroyed by time. Ultimately by death of the body. So the body's already dead. And that soul, the irreducible quantum of consciousness that inhabits the body, that never dies. Avinasi tutad vidi, yena sarvamidam tata, dinashama vyasya nakashte kotimahasi. Krishna says to Arjuna, know that which pervades the body, the soul, that's never destroyed. No one can destroy the imperishable soul. So we're encouraged here. This is intelligence. Intelligence means to make distinctions. What's really, first of all, make the distinction. Who am I? Who am I not? Oh yes, I'm not the body. I'm not the body. I can say my finger means there's two entities. There's the finger, and then there's the owner of the finger. So who's this person that's in this body peering through these eyes? Who's this person that's peering through the body, talking through this mouth and hearing through these ears? That's actually me. That's the actual self. And so, Bayam Dvitiya Binivesha Tasya, that's an aphorism from the Srimad Bhagavatam. It says, the root cause of all anxiety, the root cause of all insecurity is misidentification with the temporary body and the eternal self. So it's very practical, because I feel safe to say everyone here, we've experienced anxiety, stress, insecurity, maybe sometimes in devastating, agonizing ways. So we all have our dramas about why I'm in anxiety and stress and insecure and feeling unworthy. And we all have our stories. But the root cause of it is misidentification of the car with the driver of the car. So Krishna is encouraging us. Act using, this is intelligence. He says right towards the end of at the very end of the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Evam Bude Prambhuvasam Stabhyatman Matmida, Jahi Shatrum Mahabaho Kamarupam Darasadam. To control the lower self with the higher self by spiritual intelligence, and in that way conquer the insatiable enemy known as lust. So he's encouraging us to live with urgency, to live for that gain that'll never be destroyed by time. That's security. Nothing's going to take this away. This is unstoppable. So, all right. So one thing we've covered is that distinction between matter and spirit, soul and body. So I'll talk. For me, this relates to open-heartedness and open-mindedness. So these are virtues. Have an open mind, open heart. Sometimes, actually, as I would say, as years go on, decades go on, it seems more and more that it's practically like, it seems like the only virtue that's valued is to be open. Now, openness is a virtue. I'll assert, though, that openness, open-heartedness, open-mindedness, it's It's an instrumental virtue, an instrumental quality to move us to realize objective, absolute truth. Now, when I say terms like objective, absolute truth, sometimes we think, well, that's closed-minded once you say absolute. When I say absolute, I'm simply talking about what we've been talking about. When I say absolute, I'm referring to that which is true in all time and space. So if I say, I'm David Wolf, I'm 63 years old from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Well, then the question is, was I David Wolf from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania a billion years ago? Will I be David Wolf from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania a trillion years from now?
I'm open to it.
You're open to it?
Yeah.
There wasn't even Pennsylvania. There wasn't even the Philadelphia Phillies. It wasn't there. Okay? So that's relative truth. But now if I say something like, I am not this body. I am spirit soul. I'm an eternal servant of the Supreme Person. That's true in all time and space. Trillions of years from now, trillions of years ago. So openness as an instrumental virtue to bring us to objective truth. Not just that when we land on objective truth, then we accuse ourselves and others as, let's close mind. Let's just say, because I was open-minded, say in first grade, because I was open-minded and I trusted an authority named Mrs. Gerbard, I learned objective truth. 3 + 3 = 6. Now you can say, you're saying that's absolute, that 3 + 3 is 6. That means you're closed-minded and you're narrow-minded. No, actually, I'm quite open-minded. Actually, I'm open to receive evidence that 3 + 3 is something other than 6. Till then, I'm trusting this conclusion, trusting this knowledge. So we can understand through logic and open-mindedness, yeah, the body changed, but there's some constant identity. I'm not the body. I'm eternal spirit soul. I'm this non-physical entity that inhabits the body. And so now the suggestion here in Bhagavad Gita is certainly not to neglect the car. Kamasya nendriya pritir labo jive tiyavata jivasya tata jigasa narto yashtaya karma bi. That describes life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification, because human life is meant for inquiry into the absolute truth. That's what human life is especially meant for. That's the special opportunity. That's the special gift. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. So, just like to realize, I'm not the car, I'm the driver of the car. Okay, so let's just smash the car. No. Of course, let's take care of the car. Let's take care of the car. And as we're taking care of the car, because we value it, it takes us, it's a vehicle that takes us on our journey. Let's cultivate realization that I'm not the car. If I'm confused and thinking that I am the car, that will lead to some serious emotional and mental difficulties. Maybe I'll wash the car, and I myself will not have taken a shower or bath for months. I'll put gas in the car, but I haven't drank water for days. So we want to honor. Most important is the driver of the car. So, all right. So we're not the body. We're the spirit soul. So then, in realization and self-realization, what does the spiritual soul do? Because everything I've talked till now, actually we can find that in various philosophies. Now, what's unique about bhakti? Bhakti gives a science of what does what does the soul, what does the driver of the car do when the driver is fully realized, I'm the driver? What does the soul do?
Speed.
So so the technical name for that is bhakti. Bhakti means service. Here, there's a song by Bob Dylan. Remember Bob Dylan? His song is called "You Gotta Serve Somebody." So that's true. That's called dharma. We're all familiar with the term dharma. So dharma means the essential characteristic of the thing. We might call it that which can never be separated from a thing. So the dharma fires to be hot. Can't separate heat from fire. The dharma of sugar is to be sweet. And we as spirit souls, our dharma is to serve. Our dharma is to serve. Earlier in this chapter, Krishna establishes we are eternally individuals. Meaning, okay, but when we become fully realized, then we all merge into each other. I am you and you are me. That's not the Bhagavad Gita. It's not what the Bhagavad Gita is saying. So whether we're in these bodies, when the body dies, whether we're fully enlightened or we remain conditioned material illusion, we are eternally individuals. Natvevaham jatuna sam natvam nameja nadipana chevana babishima sarvevayamataparam. Never was there a time when I did not exist, as Krishna, nor you, nor all these kings on the battlefield, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. So we're eternally individuals. And so that's important because we talk about service. Right? We all like to serve, to make a difference. If we talk about love, we talk about love. Actually, if the idea is ultimately we're all one, we're all one, and the idea of identity and personality is an illusion, then there's no love. Love means two. Love means a voluntary exchange of service, affection, appreciation, understanding between two persons. So we're going to serve. Our choice is how to direct our service. We're going to attempt to love. Our choice is how to direct those attempts. And so, so bhakti is the science and the art of directing our service loving propensity to the Supreme Person, Just like we established that we're individual persons within this body. We're individual persons. We can also, by logic, we can establish that. An example Prabhupada often gives, let's say something simple like this watch, or even simpler like this cushion. If we ask, how did this all form? How did this watch come into being? And if you were to say, well, if I were to say, well, the wind blew, and there was this watch. So you said, well, no, that's not very intelligent, David Wolf. The wind didn't blow. No, there was a crass person. There's an engineer. There's actually there's like intelligent people behind this watch, behind the creation of this cushion. Stay with us. There's intelligence. Now, Okay, so let's say the level of structure, the level of organization behind the veins of the leaf or the rotation of the planets is trillions of times more sophisticated than the level of structure behind this watch. So, so logic means there's an intelligence behind the rotation of the planets. It's far, far greater than the intelligence behind this watch. Okay. All right, so wow, what's the nature of that intelligence? That's wow. That's the sort of question human life is for. Human life. It's like, what's the nature of myself? I'm not the body. Who am I? What's the nature of that atomic unit of sentience that inhabits the body? So bhakti is the science of how to devote our propensity for service to serve that supreme person. Krishna says later in Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti mam abhijanti avanyashtasmi takata tato mam tatato yatva dishate tadanantaram. He says that that supreme person can be known how? Through loving devotional service. Just like anyone here, if we really want to get to know each other, we could try to analyze each other. We could try to psychoanalyze each other. Maybe some amongst the 15 of us have already made attempts to psychoanalyze each other. I see what's up with this. And we might learn something about each other through that. But if I really want to get to know you intimately, if I want to get to know you in a very vulnerable way, just my aloof analysis will be very limited. If I gain your love and trust, then you choose to reveal yourself to me. That's the process to get to know an evolved person. So to direct that process, to gain the love and trust through service, gaining the love and trust of the Supreme Person, that's called bhakti. In Bhagavad Gita, that's the science of how to do it. Simply, it's the preliminary science. It's the foundation. It's the ABCs. The ABCs. And then a little later in the second chapter, Krishna uses the term regulated principles of freedom. Regulated principles of freedom. So, meaning that to the extent that we're serious to progress on this path of realizing who I am as not the body, as eternal spirit soul, and developing love for the Supreme Person. The whole 15th chapter is called the yoga of the Supreme Person. Yoga means to connect. So to connect with the Supreme Person, love and devotion. That's the whole 15th chapter. And this we're leading up to. So regulative means that if just like if we want to progress in any path, it means we follow some regulative principles. So it's certainly the same to the extent that we're serious about self-realization, spiritual life. Just a few days ago, I was conducting an online transformational coach training class, and I was giving an analogy. So I'll give the analogy here. So here we are, and here we are in Alachua Forest Sanctuary, and so here's a house. So we can say, oh, so is this house Shama Ave, it's material, so it's useless. No, this house is being used for cultivating eternal consciousness, for purifying the consciousness, for kirtan, for chanting the names of Krishna, for discussing eternal philosophy, Bhagavad Gita. So then the wood and all of the elements that go into this house. This is spiritual. No, what is material? No. So we talk about the car. The car is the body, so the car is material. No. Bhakti. Bhakti is a very world. It's completely world embracing. It's not world rejecting. We use the car for bhakti, for self realization. We use the house for self realization, for serving the supreme person. The name for the supreme person is Krishna. Then the element. That's how we spiritualize the world. That's how we. So it's not about rejecting matter. It's about utilizing matter in the service of the supreme person, and we spiritualize. So here we are in Alachua, Florida. Let's say we wanted to get to a place called the Hippodrome in downtown Gainesville, Florida. Just 2 weekends ago, we were conducting a Sappho Foundational Seminar at the Hyatt Hotel right next to the Hippodrome. Anyhow, I digress. So let's say we want to get to the Hippodrome in Gainesville, Florida. Stay with me. Where am I going with this? It relates to the regulative principles of freedom. Okay. So then I can do I curse the rules of the road? Do I think, look, because I'm a free person, I'm an independent individual. Today, in driving to Gainesville, if I feel like driving on the left side of the road, I'll drive on the left side. Maybe today, for me, red light will mean go very fast because I'm my own person. I'm free. Now we understand that that so-called freedom will constrain my freedom with maybe debt, maybe in a prison, maybe in a hospital, maybe in a morgue. Paul Salo, he has a quote I really like. He says, freedom is the capacity to commit to our highest good. So our highest good here is cultivating spiritual realization, cultivating understanding of who we are as not the body, spirit, soul, servants of the Supreme Person, Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. So just like, oh, okay, these rules of the road, that's compassion. It's not oppression. I'm glad to drive on the right side, stop at a red light. That's not limiting. That frees me. That frees me to achieve my goal of getting to the Hippodrome in downtown Gainesville. So similarly in this process of bhakti yoga, to the extent that we choose to embrace this process with intelligence, then there are certain there's certain rules of the road that support us to realize I'm not this dead man. I would say the main regular principle, there's things that helpful to do and things that are helpful to not do. The main regular principle is as much as possible. Harinam, 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 Eva, Kevalam, Kalona, Staven, Gatyanyata. For this particular yuga called Kali Yuga, the Yuga Dharma of the age, the most recommended process for self-realization is chanting the names of the Supreme Being. Particularly, well, in so many forms, particularly in this form, Idi Shuddha Shakam Nam Nam, Kali Kalmashanashanam, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So it's described that in this particular yuga, chanting this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it's especially emphasized, especially recommended by the ancient sages, by the Vedas for self-realization. So that's the main regular principle of freedom, to free us from that stifling illusion that we are the body that's the root cause of all anxiety. And then other things that help. Even let's say if we look at, like, let's say our choices about food, because the idea is like to come to spiritual realization, requires a peaceful internal environment, a peaceful internal environment to make those subtle distinctions. What's the mind? What's the intelligence? What's the body? Requires a peaceful internal environment. So it's understood. Let's say if we're accustomed to eat the result of gross violence, eat the result of gross violence. It's just, it's not even that's good, it's bad, it's sinful. It's just that if our goal is to get to Gainesville, to the extent that my goal is to realize who I am as that pure spirit soul, servant of the Supreme Person, right, then there's certain rules of the road, so it's going to be helpful to that the diet I choose has a minimal amount of violence. So we can apply that to any area of life. So this is chapter 2, text 40 of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita means Song of the Supreme, Song of the Supreme. This text reads, Neha Vikramanashasti Pratyavayona Vijate Swapamapyasya Dharmasya Trayate Mato Bhayat. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. I'll be glad to hear from anyone, any comments or realizations you want to share, or any questions you might want to ask. One thing I'll add, because I didn't really much directly address that part of the verse, most dangerous type of fear. Prabhupada alludes to that towards the closure of the purport. And he talks about it's like a real tragedy. It's a real tragedy. Prabhupada writes, at least one is sure to have a chance in the next life of being born again as a human being. So if we squander this human form of life, and then when we leave this body, when the soul leaves this body, we act in a way that kind of told the universe, I don't deserve a human form of life. We take birth in like an animal or a plant species, and then we lose that opportunity for self-realization, which is the special gift of the human form. It's considered a great tragedy. In this Bhagavad Gita philosophy, there's no eternal damnation. There's no like you're going to burn forever. At the same time, if we act in a way to degrade ourselves, then it can be a while. It can be many births till the spirit soul evolves through the species to the human form, where we get a chance to regain our eternal bliss in full loving devotional service to the Supreme Person. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema, Sajikabunoy Shravanadi Shuddhachite Karye Udai. Love of Krishna, love of God, is eternally situated in the hearts of all living entities. It's not something to be artificially gotten from some external source. This love of God is awakened in the heart, and we have a special opportunity as spirit souls in the human form to awaken our eternal bliss in unconditional devotional service to the Supreme Person. Again, the prime practice is chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you for giving your attention to Bhagavad Gita. I welcome any comments or questions. Gajendra Prabhu.
I got two comments. The first is the last word of the Sanskrit.
Yeah.
So we know that Prabhupada's given name Abai.
Yeah.
And we know that.
Yeah.
That the A.
Yeah.
And when you put the A in front, the A is like a negation of something. So we often say, oh, Abai means fearless, but more directly, it means no fear.
No fear, right?
Which, interestingly, was kind of a phrase.
Yeah.
Amongst youthful people living life, no fear.
No fear.
And I appreciate it a lot because on one hand, on this sort of focusing more on the negative aspects of like one's afraid for themselves. Like I'm afraid of this. I'm living life. There's all
I have
this,
to defend.
yeah, there's all this fear, and so one might want relief from the fear. That's kind of like below the line, like dealing with the negativity. Um, but on the positive side, it's very much about this. Um, yeah, it's not just like fear, like, oh, I hope I don't get in a car crash today. It's like my heart is fearless. My desire to serve with love
Wow.
is fearless. It's something very powerful. And yeah, so it's always interested me, this idea of, okay, yeah, there's that deep immersed in material fear, but getting beyond that, what is the actual stage when you're not focusing as much on the fear, but you're living fearlessly. And yeah, like that's what it is. You hop on the Jala Duta, you do these really amazing things. You love powerfully.
And then in that powerful love, there's not even like a thought, am I scared of this? I need to overcome the fear.
Yeah, so there's that state of being. The other thing when you're talking about, individuality.
Yeah.
And that's in the importance of that, because, well, kind of, have relationship. There's sort of the idea of the other, like one has a,
yes.
And so there is this ancient sort of disagreements between like voidists or pure monists.
Yeah.
And then on the other extreme, this sort of consciousness of separation from God, which is kind of being in material consciousness.
It is.
Like there isn't even a God is the ultimate thing. Like I'm so separated that other doesn't even exist. And then at various levels, like, well, there's the other, but I'm not really connected. So Sri Chaitanya, we chanted the mantra.
Yes.
Sri Chaitanya. So, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, he kind of was reconciling. It can be a little abstract. They said Achincha Ved, Aveda Tattva, and that this truth of identity of sort of this word simultaneously. It's both. It's kind of hard to conceive. It's kind of hard to understand. But the absolute truth is we are one and different
simultaneous
at the same time. Yeah, and I think so that's I think really important, because if we go the way of separation, then we're disconnected. There's no union. There's no yoga. There's no, and if we go to merging, then we lose that opportunity. So it's this this place of Achincha Veda Veda Tattva, which is not so much my interest to debate philosophically about who's right or who's wrong about intellectual matters, but again, it's fully setting the stage, so to speak, as one goes into that understanding of really, really being able to be yourself, like maximizing your own existence, taking full responsibility for your individuality, not abdicating any part of, and yet having full connection with God ultimately. Everything, because every bit of Shakti, every bit of energy, every atom, including in our bodies, like we embrace everything. And so, it's just kind of amazing. But the idea of all this is to open our hearts and minds to expanding fulfillment on every realm. It's the absolute holistic and the very core of energy of loving, deepest loving emotions to every single thing you see, every single person you meet is a part of that being that you love.
I appreciate all the parts of your comments. I'm contemplating them there. Appreciate you brought in A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Abhay Charan. I like how you shared, yeah, this fearless. It's not just like trying to minimize the negative, like that. In a sense, it's even more than courage. I mean, courage is a very life enriching quality, but just like fully absorbed in realization, love, love of God. And there's just no fear there. And in what you share, Gajendra Prabhu, I'm reminded of there's a purport in Bhagavad Gita where Prabhupada says, I'm paraphrasing, but I think I'm getting the essence. He says, there are the personalists and there are the impersonalists, and then there are the devotees, the bhakti yogis. So for me, that's very poignant because it's what he's saying. Like a true lover of Krishna is not in any camp, not in any philosophical camp. A true lover of Krishna appreciates all aspects of the absolute, the impersonal aspect, which is true, the personal aspect, which is true. So it's not like a camp. And so, and just hearing your sharing and reflecting on that purport from Srila Prabhupada, so the personalists, the impersonalists, and then there's the bhakti yogis, the devotees. I'm just like, I'm moved to deeper appreciation of Prabhupada's complete personal love. Thank you. Thank you, Gajendra. Appreciate the conversation. Damayanti.
Thank you.
Turn it
For
to you.
myself personally.
Turn it to yourself.
I just really wanted the laptop to turn towards me. um,
Would have been better if I got up and turned it towards you.
oh yeah,
That's true.
yeah.
I admit that.
Well, I had a question, but then, but I just wanted to clarify like what I was hearing from you, and I thought that it was really interesting. So, like, if you thought of relationship to the divine, like on a spectrum of those who believe that everything is eventually ultimately nothing, and those who believe that ultimately everything is one, so 0 or 1 or something like that. I don't know. Forget about those numbers, but then like I feel like you were saying in the middle of that, I don't know if this is exactly what you're saying, but in the middle is everything is personal and individuals, and then that's where you can experience the like love and exchange and relationship. I'm not sure if that's kind of what you were saying, but if I saw you at one point, you said something like everything's nothing, everything's one. You can't, if everything's nothing, you can't have loving exchange and individual and personality and joy and all those qualities of the soul. And if everything's one, then you also lose personality and love and all of that.
Yeah,
But
it's pretty interesting because I think the voidist, I kind of lump void, and so in part I lump kind of voidist and impersonalist kind of together because what they have in common is a negation of the aliveness of individuality and the personality of Godhead, which we're part. You know, there's the supreme being, the Paramatma, Parambrahma, so I kind of lump them together, and at the same time, again, they are on opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Because one is sort of saying there's nothing, and the other is saying everything is one. There is everything, but no distinction.
An analogy that comes to because it's a fascinating conversation. So let's say we're in a room and all the windows are closed, everything's shut, or there's no windows and it's night, it's pitch dark at night, no light. What do we see? Nothing. I'm being rhetorical here.
Nothing.
Theatrical. We see nothing. Now let's say we're in a room, maybe a room like this, and let's say in that room, fully turned on, there's a full bank of stadium lights, like a football stadium lights shining right at us. What do we see?
Nothing.
Also. All right. So in that way, for me, that analogy is helpful to understand the conversation.
Yeah.
Because the pitch black and the stadium, they're completely different from each other. The pitch black and the dazzling light, it's completely different. But at the same time, the result is really the same. We see no distinctions.
Wow.
Right? We see no distinctions. Whereas like here, where it's like it's not the pitch black, it's not this football stadium lights. We see the distinction of it. Oh, you have that color shirt, and we have this piece of furniture, and there on the altar, and there's the computer, and like we see the fine distinctions, and that's personalism. So in one sense, yeah, the pitch black and the, the dazzling light, the blinding light, they're so different, and they're the same because there's no distinction. Personalism is the distinction. There's a text. There's an ancient Upanishad called the Sri Upanishad. And in the Sri Upanishad, the Vedas personified. They pray. They say, Hiranmayena Patrena Satyasa Pitam Pukam Tattvam Pushana Pavrinu Satyadharmaya Drishtaye. Hiranmayena Patrena Tattvam Pushana Pavrinu Satyadharma. That they're really praying to Krishna. Satyasa Pitam Mukam. They say, they pray to Krishna that please remove this glaring effulgence. Please remove the glare of the football stadium lights. The Vedas personified are saying, please remove that glaring oneness, the undifferentiated white light. Of course, the undifferentiated white light, it's in one sense, it's a very admirable spiritual achievement. But they're saying, take that away. Why? So we can see your beautiful smiling face. So we can see your beautiful smiling face. That's Bhakti. Hare Krishna.
Unless you really want to respond to that,
No, I have a comment and a question.
okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for your responses. Yeah. So in the class that you shared, you said that the body's dead matter. And you also said that the house is spiritual if it's used. So I was thinking, is the body, if it's used for devotion to God,
Yeah.
if we use our mind and body, like I was also thinking a lot about the mind,
The
like
mind, yeah.
because like I probably don't get it that I'm not the body, but really I feel totally entangled with the mind.
Right.
I'm very entangled with my mind, and that's a real thing to distinguish, like the soul from the mind, and emotion, which I think mind and emotion are kind of the same thing. But anyway, so if I use the mind and the body and all I have for devotion to God, is the body dead matter, or is it spiritual? Because I didn't like those could be. Is it dead and spiritual?
Yes. Yeah. Then we spiritualize the body. Then the body is a temple of God, not just in a sentimental way. Yeah. Then just like this house is a temple of Shri Shri Radha Ramana Hari, and so then the body is a temple of God because we're using it in God's service. And yeah, maybe because we didn't really go to the mind here, so because there's more distinct. There's the gross matter, there's the subtle matter is material mind and intellect, then there's spirit soul, then there's more subtle than that, the paramatma, the super soul. But yeah, then we spiritualize the body, just like we can spiritualize a car or a house. Yeah.
But only in those moments, right? Like if I'm only God conscious for like a 0.5% per day, then the rest of the day it's not as spiritual.
It's a dead stuff.
It's okay, just vacillating between material and spiritual consciousness, which is kind of insane.
comes back to our individuality or subjectivity. There only God exists in some level as energetic source or the energy of Shakti. So the experience of material or spiritual is something we do as individuals. And it's completely subjective. It's our consciousness. If we are in material consciousness, we see no spirit. If we're in spiritual consciousness, all we see is God. That's what every person, everything that exists. So when we look at our body, when we look at that car, it's all spiritual energy. It's not coming from some source other than the supreme being, the energetic source. So it's just, but we in our minute independence, I can't control it for you. Like I'm gonna put you in material consciousness just because I'm in. We don't have that power, but for ourselves, we have to fully take responsibility.
That's encouraging.
Thank you for giving the class. I guess this is kind of speaking to what is being spoken about. Yeah, I was just kind of, sitting with this perspective that, we're not these bodies, and, there's even more subtleties like mind, intelligence.
Yeah.
Then you kind of went into like this idea that, of you didn't say it specifically, but ego and false ego.
Yeah.
Like false ego being like I'm David Wolf, and you were speaking to, well, was I David Wolf a million years ago or a trillion years from now? So that's what I mean by false ego is David Wolf, the identification of David Wolf, and then like the real ego is the eternal soul.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
and then looking at like this, the eternal soul has dharma, which is like inherent qualities that can't be separated. You were kind of speaking to that. And so, yeah, I was just kind of like sitting with this, all this information and going, okay, what is the mechanism, or like, how does one like check themselves before they even like, make decisions or act in life so that they're truly coming from the true ego of the self, or the true self. And then looking at like, even like, one could say, well, I'm acting as a servant in life, and that's my dharma of
Yeah.
my true self, my true identity. But that service could be based off of my unworthiness. Like I could be feeling unworthy, and that's why I'm giving myself to serve others. So there's
Yes.
so someone could say, well, I'm being of service. I'm acting out of my dharma or my true ego, but they're actually acting from, if they're doing it out of unworthiness, they're doing it out of, their false ego, their subtle identification. So yeah, so my question my question is like, what is the mechanism, or how does one keep oneself in check to really, be conscious and aware of like where they're acting from in their life or making decisions from?
Okay. Hare Krishna, Guru. I appreciate your comment. Hare Krishna. Yeah. Well, first, I really like that you used the term false ego and real ego, and it relates to the whole discussion. Because in some approaches and attempts at spirituality, it is to get rid of ego. Get rid of ego. Ego means a sense of who I am, and I am someone. So in bhakti, the idea isn't get rid of ego. There's a distinction. Get rid of false ego. get rid of the false conception I am this body and the designations related to this body. I was born in Philippines. No, I wasn't born in Philippines. The spirit soul existed long before Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 63 years ago. Right. So bhakti, like you said, it's about shining brightly in our individuality, our real ego, as spirit, soul, servants of Krishna, and then yeah, and that's where guidance from the experts is really helpful. That's where surrounding ourselves with, let's say, people who will share honest feedback with us. You know, I like the example you gave because no, I just love to serve and I serve and serve. But how much is my service about my need to be needed? Okay, I want you to appreciate me. See, I'm a good person. I'm always there for you. Okay, and maybe it's selfless, but maybe it's about my need for approval, and because I'm so insecure, I want you to like me. You know, like those subtle or not so subtle anarthas. Anartha means that which is a weed in the garden of the consciousness. So then, just like if we want to progress, let's say get a PhD in physics, we want to become a world class piano player or tennis player. Well, we can just like knock the ball around, see how it goes. We can just try this and that, try to learn some physics. We might get a little, but if we're really serious to get PhD in physics, then we're going to go to experts. We're going to go to an authorized university program with a book by a renowned scholar in the field. And we're going to ask questions to people we trust. We want to become really good at a sport or a musical instrument. We're, you know, we're going to hang out with those who are on the path, and there's those who are, you know, renowned like that. So similarly in spiritual life, if we just like, yeah, no, I'm really serious about self-realization and becoming really good at bhakti, and yeah, to progress, I'm just gonna like do what I feel. We're probably not gonna get very far. So there's that's why it's like the higher intelligence to guide us, to help us make distinctions in our honest introspection. Where is our service materially based? What is actual spiritual service to the Supreme Person? To make those subtle distinctions. That's why, like, we accept the shelter and the guidance of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, our prime spiritual master. Master means he's a master at bhakti, so he guides us, and his sincere followers guide us, and that helps me to look in the mirror to see, okay, yeah, that was some self-deception about how spiritual I'm being. That was really a weed. It was really arrogance. All right, like, so we accept guidance from higher intelligence. What is higher intelligence? Here it is. Here it is. And that requires intelligence, just like it's not like a humiliation, or it's not like, oh, I'm blindly following. If I went, no, it requires intelligence. So if I want to get a PhD in physics, it means it requires intelligence to know where to go. Really good teachers. If I want to become really expert in playing the piano, it takes intelligence to know where to go. Really good teachers. Really good teachers will give me feedback like, no, your forehand, forehand is off there. You need to do something different. We need someone who like knows a whole lot more than us. Here, not just knowing, but someone who's immersed in that fearless love of God consciousness. And we learn from him, we follow. Hare Krishna. I appreciate your question.
Yeah, yeah, I'm hearing, seeking authorities, experts, and if there is, field that, you want to be an expert in yourself. And then also association on individuals that'll give you honest feedback.
Yeah.
And I would imagine there's also part of your own sincerity and humility to inquire for honest feedback as well, even if you're not getting it from those that can give them to you.
Yeah. That's thanks for adding that vital point.
Yeah. Hare Krishna, thank you.
Just on that last point, the Krishna, a well-known verse of Bhagavad Gita, 2010. So Krishna says, to one who is sincere, I'll give the intelligence that you can progress on this path and come to me, and like that. I mean, to know who to approach and to be open to how to make distinctions and that's really good guidance. This is misleading. Krishna says, if you're sincere from within the heart, Tishamabanu Kampartam Amagani Jamtama Shamyatma Bhavasto Gana Deepina Basvata. I, dwelling within the heart of all living entities, destroy with a shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So our job simply is to be sincere. Hare Krishna. Tell me out.
I was just gonna say it's the same, but like, well, I guess sincerity brings you to a spiritual master.
Yeah.
Spiritual master gives instructions, and since a bona fide spiritual master who really is a spiritual master,
Yeah.
is going to guide you with things to do and not to do. And it's not that there's just one that ever existed. It's not only Prabhupada. There are other spiritual masters that have been sent by God, and a lot of their teachings are about how to serve and love God and whatnot. And there are commandments or things not to do. But anyway, I was thinking about your question and just wanted to add that. And it's what you're saying to go to a teacher, but also not just to find out once. Like, we need to be studying from spiritual masters like every day, and then that sharpens our intelligence too. And obviously, maybe I don't know what it does to sincerity. I mean, studying may also, I don't know how you cultivate sincerity. Maybe by association with others who are sincere, which includes the spiritual master, because by definition, the spiritual master would be sincere about loving and serving God. But anyway, but that was just what came to mind when you said, what's the mechanism by which I know where I'm coming from? And obviously there's feedback, like you said, and association, but you have the intelligence by studying. Like our spiritual teacher, he demonstrates intelligence and how he acts, and then all the stories that he shares and all the philosophy, it clarifies the mind. Like, okay, yeah, I can tell now because I've cultivated knowledge. That's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, like commitment and steadiness and the association of authority that belongs to that. I would imagine like prayer life. I'm thinking from a Christian perspective, like, one who's like, practicing prayer life, throughout the day, it's not just like, something they're doing on Sunday, but like, all day long, they're in that meditation, they're in that prayer. I would imagine that also would support the individual to, really know where they're acting from.
Thanks for your comments and sharing your realizations.
Howard doing? Howard doing?
Howard doing.
Any questions you would like to ask us?
I do want to share something. Yeah. Well, I don't know that I hope we have time for that. Yes, there are. Thank you for that. I'll take you up on that. Well, I mean, I guess I have a lot of thoughts related to the verse, to your class. I mean, in the group, what's happening for me in the group is I want to get to know these beautiful new faces, our friends here. But I'm wondering I don't know what your experiences are, and like I'm just curious what your curiosities might be, and that's what's happening for me, is I'm thinking about the three people I don't know so well, and like what I'm just sitting here curious, what's happening for them and what are their curiosities. Because I could share, and then
You're personally curious about three
Yeah.
individuals who you've not met before, and you're
Yes.
enthused to get to know them and to share yourself.
Sorry to put you on the spot, but I'm curious, what you might be thinking or curious about. Would you like to share?
no force.
Yeah,
And yet
yeah,
Devin
yeah.
is offering an invitation if
No
any of
force,
you would
'cause
like
then-
to.
Trust yourself.
I'm happy to share too.
Yeah, gotta put the,
Let's-
put them on the spot, on the lights,
There you go.
everything. Like, no pressure, but if you want to share.
It's happening for you
Now
now.
it's happening, if you want to, and you want to know, inquiring mind.
Okay, all right.
For 400, please.
Thanks for sharing openly, honestly, Devin. You like new friends?
Maybe more casually after the closure of the.
Oh, I can
Okay,
share.
yeah.
Okay.
Elon?
Yeah.
Elon.
So feel like I was drawn to the Temple of Universe, and I just feel like I committed to come there every day
Yeah.
because I feel like the energy there is like kind of helping me to do
Mhm.
something, and it's very transformative. Right? Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel really appreciate that Dominic invited me to come here
Yeah.
because if it's not her, I wouldn't know this place, and I don't know if this is like a personal community or something. So I feel really appreciate of that, and I do think every experience and everyone I meet in my life and everything that happens in my life is helping me to what's that word, levitate or lifting me up.
To elevate your consciousness.
Yeah.
To elevate your consciousness.
So I feel like I'm changing my mindset from, oh my god, I hate this life, like what is it doing to me, like it's just such a burden, like I can't take it anymore, to you know what, actually life is my friend, life is helping me, life is joyful, like just I'm changing my mindset from that to this, and I feel like it becomes easier, and the people I meet just like tend to resonate with me more, and like things in my life just like become more in alignment with my heart's desire. So I feel like that's something I want to share here, and I do appreciate this like community and everything here, because like I feel like it's like pretty new to me, because people and things here I have no idea, but I do appreciate this, and I like new things because they're like adventures to me, and I do like adventures because they always help me to expand, and I do appreciate all the listening and attention. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
A nice sharing.
Thank you.
She's been
Thank you.
enlivening.
Thanks for sharing.
Enon has been enlivening for Gaetano and I. Just her open heart and being on an adventure. We're at our house. We're not living in an adventure or
Right.
exploring anything.
She's
But, you know,
Stepped out of her comfort zone, came all the way
and,
to
and we're just like,
Alaska.
wow, like, you know, and like you,
Yeah.
you know, you brought me here early. That when did I come last at 5:40 a.m. So you're helping me be spiritual even more. So anyway,
Thanks for sharing, Ina. Thank you.
So I really apprecited both the analogy that you talked about with the stadium rides, the pitch black room. I hadn't heard that before, and I'm really appreciating how how that helped me to equate voidism and impersonalism. And an analogy that I had heard before, but something here clicked more. It's like a car, like the body in the car. It's like I always have some resistance, like but the car and the car doesn't do anything, but the body does. So there's blood flowing and cells moving. I was like, but wait, when you turn the car on, there's also like
There's
fluids flowing through the car, and it's just like this happening because I'm always in this car, so it's like it's always on, and so that helped me to really. I feel like I was able to take that analogy and like to see the body a little bit more like a car, like a vehicle. So it's always so like abstract. It's always so like cognitive. I'm like, oh yeah, sure, the body's like a vehicle. Sure, that's the right thing to agree to. But it was so hard for me to really own that. So I really appreciate
Thanks for
continuing to
sharing.
hear the analogy in a way that allowed me to take it in.
So in this association, you got fuller fuller realization of the vehicle analogy.
Yeah.
Fuller realization.
Yeah.
And it, in one sense, just like because like these cars, even the best engineered cars, they're so clunky and like that. And like yeah, because the illusion of Maya, because the designer of these vehicles or the veins of a leaf it's just like so expert. It's beyond what we can conceive in our car factories or our computer factories. It's just so expert that it's just like that. Oh no, we are that it's difficult to get that. Well, this is just a machine. This is just a machine because it's true. It's true that the supreme designer, the level of this design is just trillions of times more expert and fluent than the clunky stuff we drive. But you're getting the truth of that analogy more deeply. And I'm glad that the pitch darkness and stadium light metaphor that was impactful for you.
Yeah, it was exciting to get to hear a new analogy. It's like I heard whatever number of analogies there are like numerous times. I was like, oh, a new analogy.
Nice, thank you, Eze. Hare Krishna. So I think we'll bring the philosophy class and discussion to a close, and then we'll have
The most important part of the program coming up.
yes, my thoughts exactly. Breakfast, well, we just to make it philosophical, which is that it's prasadam. So it's like, oh, what's food? It's like food is material. It's actually spiritual food. It's called prasadam. It's food prepared with love and devotion for the supreme person, and so actually the eating process is part of the spiritual process, and we spiritualize our body through consuming prasad. Thank you for your presence and association. Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama.
We'll serve you, so you can be in here if you want. We'll bring things around.
Hare
There's also spots at the table if anyone wants to sit at the table. There's like a bathroom and down the hall. Is this? I'll end this. No chat.